Hello, my dear learners. Let's have a quick pre reading of Horace's Satires 1 of section 4. And we are studying about classical Roman epic or narrative poem. Now, who's Horace? He is a Roman satirist born in 65 BC, and he has contributed towards ancient Roman literature. His famous work is mainly considered to be Ars Poetica, and which is also known as in English On the Art of Poetry. He has written a lot of epistles and letters as well, and he died in 8 BC. So he wrote epistles which are in the form of letters. Now, our next question is, what is in the section of the satire that we are going to study? Since it is a pre-reading video, so we are going to study about the glimpse of nature of his own writing, moral justification of satire and its definition as an artistic form. We are also going to study about the mode of poem, and we see that it's in argumentative form, tracing back to his predecessor poets who were before him. Now, there are a lot of we'll also find a lot of humorous ways of telling readers how to read a satire. So he brings that humorous or farcical element of irony in his writings. And last but not the least, we are going to also find out about the dialectics of his biological father, who raised him up, and his poetical father, Lucilius and Maecenas, who raised him intellectually. So we are going to have a look at both these features in his writing. Now, before going through his satire, we need to know what is a satire. What is the notion of a satire? Ancient Romans were the first to define the literary genre of satura. Our modern word satire derives from this Latin word, but the Roman satura was quite different from what we envision satire to be today. The saturae of Horace and Juvenal, it read more like mild lectures than social commentary. While they do provide some degree of social critique and are somewhat humorous, they are not intended to provoke any sort of real social change. That means they are not very serious. And they are too overt to qualify as satire in the modern sense. But today we see satire as a very powerful artistic form used to critique specific human behaviors. Now, the particulars of this form have been defined differently by various people. Just for example, to explain it to you, M.D. Fletcher, author of several critical books on satire, calls it, I quote, verbal aggression in which some aspect of historical reality is exposed to ridicule, I unquote. But this definition is overly broad and would include argument and simple name calling. Another professor of English at the University of Miami, that is Frank Palmieri, states that, I quote, satiric narrative works indirectly through parodic alteration of celebratory forms, established discourses, and dogmatic pronouncements, I unquote. Now, this definition is narrower, ruling out many works which are not satirical but lacks definition of what satire is working to accomplish. So you need not panic, my dear learners, you need not panic by listening to their definitions of satire, because recently many people have begun using the term satire to refer to any type of humor that involves ridicule, particularly of authority. We'll find, let us take another example, like for Canadian commentator Rex Murphy. You might have heard about him. He points out that, I quote, we throw the term satire around rather too generously these days, I unquote. And I quote him again: it's a free upgrade when making simple fun of someone passes as satire. I unquote. And is a valid one. Why? Because applying the title of satire to any work that involves jeering degrades the genre. Okay, that's the point of really noting it down. So, satire can be looked upon as a critique. Three different levels we can look upon satire. One is critique, the other one is irony, and the third one is implicitness. Now, how as critique? Because it can be a critique of some form of human behavior, vice, or folly with the intent of persuading the audience to view it disdainfully and thereby encourage a degree of social change. So there is some kind of seriousness. We can find it from critiquing, a healthy critiquing, an intellectual critiquing. We're pointing at that. And the second level is irony. Now, satire uses irony as a tool, often in a humorous way, to point out the problems with the behavior being critiqued. So we don't have anything personal with the writer or the poet or the artist, but yes, that has been very humorously acted upon or told in a farcical pattern. Then comes the third layer, and that is the third tool, in fact, that is implicitness. Now, satire is not an overt statement and it does not come to an explicit verdict, but rather the critiqued behavior. It deconstructs itself within the satirical work by being obviously absurd, most often because it is exaggerated or taken out of its normal context. So that's all for today. Thank you so much.